Welcome to Herbally Yours, an adventure into the world of natural medicine. Here is your host, Dr. Ellen Kamhi, the natural nurse who will help you take the leap to ultimate wellness.
Greetings. Thank you so much for joining me, Ellen Kamhi, the natural nurse, for another edition of Herbally Yours, right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Herbally Yours brings you the latest information about the many facets in the world of natural living. Today, I'm so happy to have on board as our guest, herbalist, author, and university professor, Bridgitte Mars. Bridgitte is an herbalist and nutritional consultant of natural health with almost 50 years of experience. She teaches herbal medicine at Naropa University and School of Health Mastery in Iceland. She has taught at Omega Institute, Kripalu, Shivananda Yoga Ashram, Envision, various festivals, and even the Mayo Clinic. She is a founding and professional member of the American Herbalist Guild and an author of many books and DVDs with a really long list that you can find at her website, BridgitteMars.com. Today, we're going to be discussing and reviewing her new book, which is called Addiction Free Naturally, Liberating Yourself from Tobacco, Caffeine, Sugar, Alcohol, and Prescription Drugs. Thank you so much for joining us today, Bridgitte.
It is my pleasure and honor, Ellen. Thank you so much.
Now, this book, you already released it once, but now you have a brand new edition.
Yes, well, when I wrote Addiction Free Naturally, maybe 20 years ago, I was told don't write about anything illegal. Okay, so we couldn't talk about cocaine addiction or heroin addiction, even cannabis abuse. I couldn't talk about psychedelic therapy. So I just focused on all the things that were legal, sugar, tobacco, alcohol, things like that. But now, we have an opioid crisis and there's a lot more research. And so I'm able to cast my net out wide and include even more addictions. So I'm really glad for Inner Traditions' bravery and being spot on and really addressing this problem that our planet is dealing with.
Although sugar is certainly a terrible addiction also, and a lot of people don't actually recognize that because, like you said, it is legal.
It's true, and yet one of the theories in my book is that sugar addiction can really be a catalyst for many other addictions. So many people, for example, will give up alcohol, but then if you've ever been to an AA meeting, there's such a plethora of sugary sweets available, and we have to remember that sugar becomes alcohol in the body. And very often, one of the things that drives addiction is people will have low blood sugar, so they use a substance that elevates their blood sugar. Even coffee, when you drink coffee, the effects are very similar to a sugar high. You get this adrenaline rush. And then tobacco is cured in sugar. And so my son-in-law likes to call sugar legal drugs for kids. So we want to avoid people going from one addiction to another, or say smoking, and you give up smoking, but then you gain 30 pounds because you take up candy as a recreational pursuit.
It's a complex topic because if we look at a couple of those things, like for instance, coffee you mentioned, I chose that as an addiction of choice because I don't tend to be an addicted person. And while working with clients who were struggling with various addictions, I found that my empathy was missing. Like, I didn't understand why you didn't just do. I had other clients, and what they said, the 12-step program, there's no such thing. In terms of addiction, it's a one-step program, which is stop. That's the only step. All the rest of the stuff is to just get yourself psyched to do that one step, which is the only step. So, that's like a little bit harsh, but I also think in a lot of ways it's true. So when dealing with people with addictions, it was hard for me to understand why you wouldn't just go ahead and stop. So I decided, well, what am I addicted to? And the only thing I could find that I was addicted to when I thought about it was coffee. So I decided, okay, well, that, why was I addicted? Because I thought about it at night, like I thought, oh, it'd be nice when I get up in the morning and I smell coffee and I have coffee. And it was very difficult to actually stop it. I got headaches. I was thinking about it all day. I usually drink organic coffee at home through a brown non-dioxin filter with filtered water, but I was starting to kind of drive past Dunkin' Donuts, things. And I was able to stop. I found that addiction stopped after about a week of more or less using willpower. Then my husband, who's the barrister at my house, he makes the coffee. He actually said, I'm not happy that you're not sharing in this with me at this time. And after about a month, I said, okay, I completely can do this. Then I went back to drinking coffee. But it was an interesting experience.
And, as you say, you made a conscious choice. And, I think, Ellen, we can also look at, is it undermining your health? I mean, many people can drink, 1 cup of coffee a day, 2 cups of coffee a day. So it's not that all the substances are bad. It's the relationship we have with it and how it's affecting us. And some addictions have more severe consequences than others. So I certainly know about the little ritual that you share with a partner or a friend, something warm on a morning. And again, I think we also get to a certain age and say, well, I'm doing pretty good. If I have this as a little treat, that can be different. And I also know that if it's causing a health problem, I really need to back away. And how can I do that?
So that's why you decided to write this book. I mean, you've been seeing clients for, like you said, 50 years. You have... And are deeply involved in the research. So what made you pick this topic to redo?
Well, after working with clients, which I now do on Zoom as well as in person, a lot of people, they want to do something to improve their health, to improve their arthritis or their brain function or their depression or their, maybe even an autoimmune disorder. But if they have an addiction, that could really be in the way of them experiencing ultimate health. So I feel that people could take all the supplements and eat all the healthy organic food and a green juice every day. But if there's something that is contributing to the demise of their health, then we need to look at that. So I felt that was a really important topic to address. And I'm so glad that I have. And I think we all know someone or have been someone who could use a little help. And very often we just say no, or just use your willpower, or just stop. But I really find that there are techniques that people can use that can help make that transition easier. So you mentioned when you quit coffee, you were having headaches. So, a gradual decrease with coffee might help to prevent the headaches, where we have to look at how the coffee cups have gotten bigger over the years. It used to be like an 8-ounce cup, and now they're, mammoth sized cups. And we count that as 1 cup of coffee. So what if we gradually reduce our consumption or make it more of a coffee, oat milk or something like that, or use smaller cups. So there's techniques. And for caffeine withdrawal headaches, chamomile tea might help. And of course, there's other caffeine beverages that might be less habit forming, like yerba mate or even green tea, which is so rich in phytochemicals and anti-cancer compounds. So I try to give people ideas on what foods, what herbs, what lifestyle things can help rather than only relying on willpower.
So you did bring up, and let me just reintroduce you to our guest today, that you're listening to Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Ellen Kamhi, the natural nurse, and today my guest is brilliant herbalist, author, and university professor Bridgitte Mars, and she has such a wide range of wonderful books, which you could find at BridgitteMars.com, and we'll also have a link on our archive show to make it easy. But she has so many books, like the Natural First Aid Handbook. That's a must-have. Everybody should have that, especially since they're spending so much time with their children at home now. The Home Reference to Holistic Health and Healing, the Country Almanac of Home Remedies, and a long list of other books as well. But today we're focusing on her newest book called Addiction Free Naturally. And also, I was really pleased and honored to write one of the, I guess you call it intros or whatever you call it there, to the brand new book. And so
right there on the top.
Oh, yeah, it is actually.
Thank you.
And there's so much useful information in this book. Now, let's talk a little bit more, because things have different amounts of addiction. Like if you're comparing coffee and tobacco, that's not the same. Tobacco actually has nicotine receptor sites. And just like marijuana also has endocannabinoid receptor sites inside our body and inside our brain. And when those sites aren't getting filled, they really create havoc in terms of the individual's choice about stopping or not.
It's true. And tobacco is one of those things that, an occasional use usually is not going to be okay. For the person who has a serious addiction with it. So, another common factor with people that have addictive tendencies is being poor oxygen metabolizers. So breathing deeply is also really helpful because our brains need oxygen. And I used to be a cigarette smoker. As a teenager, it was a cool thing. And really in the 50s, they didn't even promote that it was bad for your health. It was sophisticated and calmed anxiety. And yet I, at 17, was a tobacco addict. And so yoga breathing really helped me. I also found that sipping liquids through a straw, which is about the same width as a cigarette, and that chewing on a licorice stick or a cinnamon stick gave me something to do with my hands and mouth. But I also think, Ellen, as a culture, we have these little phrases that run through our mind because of commercials, you deserve a break today, or I haven't got time for the pain. So people hear these little ditties and they think, I need something to help me. And so another strategy is making a list of all the other ways you can reward yourself. Doing yoga or going on a walk or reading a novel or making a phone call or working in the garden or, something that's pleasurable, spending some time working on a craft. So we have to find other ways to reward ourselves because really, we worked hard today. We deserve a little bit of pleasure, but we want to choose things that are not going to undermine our health.
And it's not that easy. That's the thing that I found from people who struggle with that. What about what's going on right now with the pandemic and everyone's lives being in a total state of disarray? I mean, you and I think, are lucky in some ways. At least I feel lucky. I love my grandchildren, but they're not in my house with me having to do that homeschooling every day. Well, my daughter is, and her life is just amazing, with like 4 children at home and trying to get them all homeschooled. I mean, what's going on with all the additional pressure financially and worried about health in terms of the level of addiction?
Well, we do know that a lot of addictive use is way up right now. People are trying to find ways to cope with stress. And, if you watch television, which I don't, but, we're constantly being advertised junk food and addictive substances, or even prescription drugs. So it's almost taken over people's consciousness, like this is what you need to do to cope. And so that's why it's so important to really, get to the source of it and not allow this to be our demise. I keep using that word right now, but I certainly know that, so many people are struggling, and we see businesses closing. And so people are having to cope with a lot of anxiety. So, what are ways that we can deepen our connection to overcome things like fear, anxiety, worry, sleep better at night? So the book also addresses some of those reasons why do people take sleeping pills, for example. They need help sleeping, but what are some healthier ways that we can put ourselves to sleep rather than taking a drug that could be addictive or even interfere with the quality of sleep in our dream state? So I try to give solutions. There are other safer things that we can use to help us sleep, and things to help with anxiety, for example, like, again, breathing essential oils get us to breathe more deeply and can calm us. Rescue remedy is great to know about. Just being aware that panic attacks are more likely to set in when people have low blood sugar, and that what are the snack foods that you're choosing, because snack foods could be healthy if you choose wisely. But again, that addictive cycle is even perpetrated not only by sugar, but eating lots of refined carbohydrates, white flour and white rice and white bread. And I know your listeners are doing better than that, but we have to look at the culture at large. This is still what most people consider normal.
No, that's true. And certainly some people just listen, but they don't necessarily, do these things for themselves as well. But you mentioned a couple things that I want to go more deeply into, because these are things that are not expensive. They're widely available, and those listening to the show may want to try them. Also, I love in the book, Bridgitte, that you have so many lists, like very quick bullet points and lists that people go, gee, do I have an addiction? Like, not everybody recognizes they do, or is willing to recognize they do, or to come to terms with it. But when you're talking about aromatherapy and rescue remedy, those actually are two things that are vastly helpful once you decide to put yourself on the path. So let's talk about some specific ones. Tell us more about rescue remedy, and tell us more specific essential oils that you might suggest people get a hold of.
Surely. Well, rescue remedy, if you don't know about it, is a Bach flower remedy. And it's made with 5 different flowers. And it's one of those remedies I say, don't leave home without it, because you can often offer it to somebody who needs it. You meet somebody who's, sobbing hysterically or can't cope. Rescue remedy is like a little miracle in a bottle. And it's made with 5 different flowers. Star of Bethlehem, the great comforter of sorrows, clematis to help you feel grounded in your body. And there's 3 other flowers in there. And you simply put 2 drops under your tongue, and it can help make your day go more smoothly. You can do your work. You can do your job. You can cope with the stress a lot easier. And it does have a little bit of alcohol in it. So people can put a few drops on their wrists or on their forehead, on their third eye point, or even on their throat, so you don't have to ingest it. Some people even add it to the bath. But that is like a little coping strategy that can really help you get through a difficult time.
I want to share that. You are so correct. It's amazing. As a psychiatric nurse in a major psychiatric ward, when I was younger, I actually used rescue remedy all the time. And I was able to do things just by putting it on people's wrists. I'm thinking of this big giant guy. I'm 4'11". He must have been, like 6'2", a really giant guy who was severely mentally ill and having an attack. So, of course, the big bouncers came in. We call them orderlies in the hospital. They were going to, bring him down to the ground and make a whole big scene and give him a shot of Thorazine. All of that was avoided by me going over. Of course, I didn't tell them I'm doing this, right? I just put a little rescue remedy on my fingers and rubbed it on his wrists and said, okay, John, let's sit down. Let's just sit down. I told the orderly, stand back, let me try. Sure enough, it was an amazing thing. And I've seen this with animals also, because I ran a farm. He just stopped being so aggressive. I was able to sit him down. Now, that saved everybody so much trauma. And that's a very severe example. Of course, with my children, too, when they had to go in and they're 45 and 42 now, like yours, but when they had to go give a book report and it was, scary to them. So it was useful all across the realm with animals and people. What a wonderful thing to share with people in your book, Bridgitte, because not everybody has that. And me, I would not leave home without it.
Exactly. Have one in your purse, your backpack, your desk. And, it's something that you can offer to someone. And again, if they don't know you, they may not want to take something orally. But as you said, applying it topically can be helpful. But aromatherapy is another one of those very safe things to offer because you don't have to ingest anything. You simply inhale deeply, and we all know that breathing is a great way to calm our psyche. So it was very interesting in writing Addiction Free Naturally. I really gave a lot of thought, and I even had a panel along with my friend Mindy Green, who's a wonderful aromatherapist, about what essential oils are going to help satisfy the receptor sites or even the smell for different compounds. So, for example, people that, let's say people want to calm down, a really simple one that's available everywhere is lavender essential oil. So if using sedatives is your jam, then you might find the calming properties of lavender. And I like to remind people to take 5 deep inhalations on each nostril. It's really good to balance the hemispheres of the brain by smelling on both sides. And if you smell more than 5 on each side, you might find yourself feeling a little loopy. But lavender is always a good one, a really safe one. If you get a little on your skin, it's one of the least likely ones to burn. But then, alcohol consumption. What are the essential oils that can help dispel that craving by having some similar quality or smell that can fill those sites that are like hungering for the addictive substance? So juniper berry essential oil is one and juniper is used to make gin. But because the desire for sweets has a component in alcohol craving, so I think of essential oils like cinnamon or fennel or anise. And one more is for tobacco addiction, essential oil of black pepper. It smells the most like an ashtray. And just by smelling it, you feel like, I had my fix. This can even work for food, too. As a writer, I have a plethora of essential oils above my desk. And yes, there may be times during the day where I say, I really need some yerba mate or a piece of chocolate. But if I open a bottle of cinnamon or fennel essential oil and deeply inhale, I have fed my brain a little treat. And I didn't have to ingest any calories or even go downstairs.
Yeah, so, it does have to do with some knowledge and using it in our psyche as if we're someone in charge of ourselves instead of the inner voice and the addiction being the voice that runs the body. And, it's very complicated because when we talk about sugar addiction, most people who abuse sugar also have the growth internally of microorganisms such as mycoplasms or Candida albicans. And those organisms, and it's true with alcohol addiction as well, actually send out chemicals to our brain to tell us to ingest those things because they want it.
That's right. It's like an inner sabotage because they're saying, feed me. And it's almost like better, but they are clamoring and you're not going to forget about it until you've done something. So using smell can be a really powerful tool to let them think they've been fed.
That's interesting. So you kind of, whoever the you is that made this decision that you'd like to move away from your addictions is taking charge. And your book, Addiction Free Naturally, are full of tips that person can use. But don't you think, especially with severe addictions, that some kind of professional help is also a good thing to bring into your life?
Yes, and I certainly state that. I mean, people who have underlying health conditions or are addicted to multiple substances, addictions to prescription drugs, certainly are going to benefit from some professional help. And my hope is that people who are in the profession of helping those with addictions will learn that there are dietary things. What you choose to eat for lunch or dinner might have an effect. What are some supplements that a person could take? But indeed, I'm not denying that professional help or even hospitalization might be in order. But then there's always, what do you do when you're done with that? How can you keep that willpower up? And what can you do and by rewarding yourself and nurturing yourself to make it easier to stay off the substance that has not been serving you?
That's why this book is such a wonderful aid. Well, we're getting close to the end, but why don't you please throw out some nutritional supplements that might also be useful on the quest to be addiction-free. And they're all discussed in depth and so much more that we won't be able to cover today in your book, Addiction-Free Naturally.
And of course, I'm really proud that the book has so many herbal suggestions, but, I think it's good to read about them and know which are safe and which might be right for you. But a few supplements that can help people get through an addictive period where they're letting go. A calcium magnesium supplement can calm the nervous system. A GTF chromium, which stands for glucose tolerance factor chromium, and I suggest dosages inside, but taken between meals can help stabilize your blood sugar so that you're not craving a beer or another cup of coffee. L-glutamine is another good one, especially for alcohol addiction. L-glutamine is an amino acid. A fish oil supplement, and there are vegan sources of omega algae, so if someone's a vegan, but good quality fats are really important. And so, many people, when they give up an addiction, might also be working on improving their diet, being in a more alkaline state. So, eating greens or drinking a green juice or making a commitment to eating a salad every day. One more supplement might be a B vitamin complex, just to calm the nervous system. So there are things that we can do rather than just say no, but just say yes to some things that support you, that show that you are taking charge, loving, honoring yourself, nurturing yourself is going to have more success. And that this isn't something you do over and over again because you're going to have more tools to work with.
Well, thank you so much. And ending now, just tell us the best place for people to find you, Bridgitte Mars.
Thank you so much. Well, if you spell my name right, Bridgitte, Mars like the planet.com. I have all my books there. And of course, you can order them on Amazon, but it's always nice to support your local bookstores as well as your artists.
That's so true. And I want to thank you so much for being our guest today. And thank you, listeners, for tuning into Herbally Yours, produced right here or wherever in the studios of 90.3 WHPC. Nassau Community College, Garden City, New York. And you can also listen to us on our archive anytime, as well as on iHeartRadio. For further information, you can email us at whpc@ncc.edu. This is your host, Ellen Kamhi at naturalnurse.com, inviting you to join us again next week for another edition of Herbally Yours. Until then, stay healthy.